Hello, Dawn Moore, Legence Title Company. I have been asked to address some questions that have been asked about 1031 tax-free exchanges. Investors are clamoring for real estate right now, and many investors are moving up, so to speak. When they sell to buy up, they want to defer the capital gains taxes by using a 1031 tax-free exchange. 1031 tax-free exchanges are only used for exchanges of like-kind property that is used in the trade or business or held for investment purposes. You cannot use a 1031 tax-free exchange to defer capital gains on residential property used for homesteads. However, you can use a 1031 to exchange residential property that has been used for rental income in exchange for other real estate to be used for investment purposes. Most investors know how to facilitate a tax-free exchange and already have a facilitator who will handle the necessary paperwork and the money exchange. What I want to address today is what is expected of the party to the contract who is not asking for the tax-free exchange. For instance, a buyer who wants to buy a piece of property that is intended to be sold in a tax-free exchange. Buyers want to know what is expected of them. The answer to that question is basically nothing, other than to allow the seller to insert in special provisions of the contract something that reads, both seller and buyer agree to cooperate and will sign the necessary documents at closing to facilitate a 1031 tax-free exchange at no additional cost to either party. Additionally, the buyer may need to sign a document or two at closing acknowledging that the seller's proceeds will be paid to a qualified intermediary. The actual closing will not involve an exchange of property. It will involve the buyer buying the piece of property according to the terms of the contract, just as in a typical transaction. However, the proceeds go to a qualified intermediary until the seller finds a replacement property. The IRS allows an investor to sell investment property prior to purchasing investment property and still use this 1031 tax deferment program. The investor, though, must identify replacement property in writing within 45 days of that closing and must close on that investment property within 180 days or the filing of his next tax return, whichever is sooner. Bottom line, the buyer really doesn't have to do anything different to participate in a 1031 tax-free exchange asked for by the seller. So, if you search for a piece of property that is noted in MLS that the property is intended to be sold under a 1031 tax-free exchange, if this property meets your client's needs, don't run away from this. The buyer will close this transaction as any typical transaction. I hope this helps as you search for properties that meet your client's needs. And if Legence Title can be of any service, please call on any one of us in our 26 locations in the North Texas area. We want to be your resource for results. And one more thing, if you're near a radio this afternoon at 3 p.m., please tune in to 770 AM Playmakers Talk Radio. It's a pleasure for me to be a guest speaker with Steve Klein as I talk about what's trending in the North Texas real estate market. Thank you, and make it a good week.